Alright, we should be live. So normally I would be doing like a draft right about now, but this morning we had to have a plumber over. We have an old refrigerator that we haven't gotten rid of yet, but the line to it still feeds water to, and we have not. There was actually a problem with the valve that was stopping it from shutting off properly, so it just kind of kept feeding water to it, and with us going away for 2 weeks, if we left it there, it's already damaged the floor in the kitchen. Like there is a small but significant hole in the floor from not dry rot, from actual like waterlogged rot. So we need to make sure that that wasn't going to just collapse the center of the kitchen floor in while we were gone. With 2 weeks with nobody changing out the catch bucket or anything. So I was thinking that we were going to get rid of the entire fridge, but we have decided to just cut the line for right now. That's taken care of, but we don't. I was gonna say that's taken care of, but that means that I didn't get to stream this morning. And honestly, with the new set coming out, and I won't be here for the new set's release because I'll be gone for 2 weeks. I'm leaving the morning that the set goes live on Arena. So this might be posted by the time I get back. I tried to make sure I had enough videos spaced apart that it will cover the entire time I'm gone, so that way there's a new thing going live every day on YouTube, but just one video each day, so since I had to space them out. But it will be either a building Ashling VOD, or it will be one of my drafts for any of the past three things I've done. So the very end of Lorwyn Eclipsed regular, Lorwyn Eclipsed Alchemy, the quick draft format where you got the emblem, the Maskwood Nexus emblem, and the Arena Power Cube. So I have a whole bunch of those stocked up that I was going to be using anyway and would have to burn through, but I've been especially keen to make sure I had enough to make it through. And honestly, aside from doing my dailies for the gold, I don't feel like I need to play any more Magic right now. Like, I would do drafts to make sure I had content if I wasn't going to be going away, and would just release them like, a Power Cube draft and one of the various Lorwyn Eclipse drafts instead on like the same day. But so anyway, we're working on Ashling. Like I said, we only have 78 cards, which means we have 18 cards left to cut, and then she's done and she's built. Because we just need to add in, we need to add in the lands, but that should be pretty easy to do since 35 out of the 40 are by default spoken for. So let's get to it. I'm going to be honest, as I was getting this set up, I saw Animate Dead, and I'm like, do I actually need Animate Dead? The main reason to run Animate Dead is because we are putting a lot of powerful things into our graveyard very early in the game, so a cheap reanimation spell lets us get something back that will then stay in play to, block. That is the one thing this deck does not do particularly well, is create blockers. A lot of its stuff is temporary. It hits really hard and very early in the game, but once you have done that, you don't have anything left over afterwards. You're usually taking advantage of the comes into play triggers from the elementals that you're evoking in order to keep the board relatively clean. If anything's super dangerous, kill that one early artifact that's going to let the opponent pull ahead, or kill their, efficient, dangerous creature, their Ragavan or something. We have a ton of stuff to do that with. What we actually need sometimes, though, is a blocker, and we do have other ways to get creatures back or to just cast them naturally. So the biggest reason to keep Animate Dead is because there will be times where we will evoke an elemental and then cast Animate Dead in the same turn, either on that elemental or one of the other ones we previously evoked for 6 mana, and that will be fine. But we won't We won't really need it, I don't think. We have multiple things that can get back dead creatures. They won't bring them back to play is the biggest issue. But we have ways to cheat large creatures from our deck into play, and that will get us more value. The only problem is if we cannot tutor for a creature that can do the thing we needed most because all of them are in our graveyard. That might be the one thing where Animate Dead is better, but we do still have Grave Shifter and Greenborn of Marasa as ways to pull cards back from the graveyard so that we can get the effects again. And I think I would rather keep the elementals than run the animate effects. This is the last one that we have in the deck, I think. So, but I think it's less important than the other things that we are trying to accomplish with the deck, so I'm going to cut it just because I do need cuts, and that feels like a card I can get rid of without losing anything the deck, like, so anything that makes the deck unique and interesting. Like, I feel like cutting a card like Teferi's Veil, while that does not give us blockers, it does allow the attackers to live through a turn and be there to attack on subsequent turns, and that's pretty cool. The other enchantment does it better, but the other enchantment is also at least twice as much mana, I believe. Maybe it's not. Maybe it was 3 mana. Was that one white and 2? And the other ones were like the one where if you make a token during your turn, you choose a type, and we'll choose elemental. Obviously, if you make a token during your turn of that type, at the end of your turn, you make a token that's a copy of each token of that type that you made this turn. So if we evoke an elemental and sacrifice it and make the token, that enchantment will kick in during the end step and make a copy of the token. And since the haste and sacrifice is tied to Ashling's creation of the token, and the effect isn't making her make more tokens, we will get to keep the new tokens. Yeah, if you doubling season with Ashling, all of the tokens get sacrificed at end of turn. But if you make a copy of the token, that is not one of its copyable characteristics. It does not have the text "sacrifice this creature at end of turn" unless you pay Wooburg. It would need to have, like, this token gains, like, quotation marks, haste, and until end of turn, or gains haste until end of turn, and would have to have end gains at the beginning of your next end step. Like, it would have to be in quotes as game text that the card gets. And even then, we would get to keep it for a full turn cycle, and then it would be untapped on our turn, and we would have started the turn with it, so it doesn't matter that it lost haste. So in theory, we would get to attack with it. So not ready to cut Goblin Bombardment. We have 4, right? We have 5 sacrifice outlets. It's 5 sacrifice outlets. 2 of them work really well with Maha, who I could theoretically cut. Reducing everything to 1 toughness is not in and of itself good enough, but the fact that both Magma and Goblin Bombardment are sacrifice outlets makes Maha a lot stronger. So, and one of the fun things is that if you evoke Maha and with the evoke trigger on the stack, you sacrifice it to Goblin Bombardment to ping something, Maha will be gone, and so if it didn't have 1 toughness, it won't die, but then since you sacrificed it, Ashling will make a token copy of Maha, which will then make the creature's toughness 1, see that it has 1 damage marked on it, and kill it. So, you do still get to kill something by sacrificing Maha to ping a creature. That's one of the more fun things that the deck can do. Is it might lose the original Maha at some point in time, but everything will still have 1 toughness as long as you sacrificed it. Like a second later, it'll go back to having 1 toughness, so any damage marked on it will still kill it. Food Chain is too good. Incubator is probably too good. I need to make these cuts, but there are so many things that I don't feel like I can cut, so it's going to be a question of, well, then what can we cut? You know, what card is not doing the thing? I am very, very reluctant to cut Crucible of Worlds, because one of the things that makes decks like this work for me in paper, like that I've actually played with in paper already, Crucible of Worlds goes a long way because any fetch land can fix for multiple colors of mana. We will have um, two of each basic land combinations fetchable from the deck, so it is very easy, even with a specific fetch land and a Crucible of Worlds, to fix your mana over a couple of turns. Like, you need to have some absolutely crazy mana requirements stretched out across your hand in order for that to not be at all good enough. Like, it might be slower than you would like, but a lot of the times you should be able to cast the thing and activate a thing, especially with how much colorless mana Ashling can get away with, because she doesn't have to hard cast a lot of the elementals that you have. So it's more getting like the enchantments down and the artifacts, so that way you get the additional effects whenever you evoke an elemental. And casting things like Mikaeus or Elish Norn. So I don't want to lose Crucible of Worlds because that goes a long way to making the mana more consistent. With 10 fetch lands in the deck, you're going to be able to search basically every turn that you want to for, let's see, if it's two different colors, so it's excluding three of the colors, so you're missing out on like, what is it, like 9 lands that you can't get, because it can only be the ones. It has to be an even number. So I think it's 6. It's either 6 or 12, because you get like one for each set from the duels and the shocks. So I think it's I think it's 12 you can't get out of, out of the 20. Hang on, that sounds too many. That sounds like too many you can't get. I can't do math. This is why I have a math fail emote that I love and is adorable. I have no fingers at the end of my hands. How do math? I have little, like, Powerpuff Girl nubs. These are insufficient for counting. How many actually is it? Like, if you're a 3-color deck, there's always one fetch land that you can't run, but there should be like more. So if you can, if you're a 2-color combination, there are 3 fetches you normally can't run, right? For the 3 different colors that overlap with each other. So yeah, it should be like 6 lands that you can't get. So you have the ten fetches, 6 lands, and 3 basics. So there are 9 lands you can't actually fetch, because you'll have 2 basic lands that you can get also that are those colors. But yeah, you can get all of the rest of them. There we go. Figured it out. Figured out very simple math. It was a word problem though. That's not fair. You can't combine English and math. You can't be good at both of those things at the same time. That's impossible. Uh, Doubling Season, Farseek. I think I've cut down to the bare minimum of ramp spells at this point. I'm going to try my best to keep Cauldron, because I want that 4th effect that when my creatures die, they come back if X is true. Now, Cauldron of Souls does not do anything with Airdew, but the other thing that we cut, Luminous Broodmoth, does not do anything with some of our elementals naturally, and does not work with the Valkyrie's Ascension. So that felt like the better one to cut, even though in a vacuum it works just fine as a way to get back our stuff that we're evoking. We don't have a ton of flying, but we have Mole Drifter and Shine Striker off the top of my head, and I believe we have a handful of other ones. Yeah, it's just the fact that they're not angels, and also I do appreciate that. Unlike Death Mantle, the Valkyries thing does make them in addition to their other types instead of taking away their other types. So that's super helpful. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to keep Cauldron of Souls, but we need so many cuts and everything I'm looking at. It's like, no, I really want to keep that if at all possible. It's getting to the point where it's not possible. Things have to go. So what are we going to lose? Like, do we lose Anointed Procession? That leaves us. I think that only leaves us with Doubling Season and the green one at this point. Like, I cut all of the creature-based ones, and I don't think there were any other artifacts or enchantments. There's like Kaya, but you have to downtick her to do that. Or Elspeth, Elspeth has to stay in play, which is better. Kaya has to downtick. Both of them would let me make more tokens whenever I make tokens, but they're both vulnerable to being attacked to death. And this deck does not do a good job of defending planeswalkers. I can barely defend myself half the time, so I think we're at bare bones for the doubling season effects, and I don't want to cut any more of them if I don't have to. Again, everything is I don't want to cut if I don't have to. We have to cut some things, so what are they going to be? Like, I don't really want to lose Maha, but we do have other creature kill spells in the deck, and it's nice that Goblin Bombardment and Magma both allow me to get additional value out of sacrificing my things, and that can be creature kill instead of just, face burn for the opponents in small amounts. But we might be getting to the point where trying to keep other cards to keep Maha happy, but I don't want to lose the sacrifice outlets is the problem. Like, I could see losing Magma, but I kind of want to replace it with something else that doesn't cost mana to sacrifice before I would um consider it like just cutting it to cut it. But that would knock Maha off the list. I want Airdew, I want Flame Braider, Gathering Stone, Shine Striker, and Twin Flame Travelers. Want all of those. Do I lose the Roaming Throne? So Roaming Throne is not an elemental, and we have multiple other cards that copy my triggered abilities. I don't think I cut Elish Norn, even though she can't be an elemental on the battlefield either. Like, Roaming Throne can be an elemental, and if I sacrifice it at that point, I will make token copies of it. I can't evoke it, but I can spend 4 mana just to cast it, and then if I have a way to sacrifice it while it's on elementals, it will make an elemental. Which only really helps with doubling season because it needs to be in play. To double trigger Ashling, because the one that was in play had to get sacrificed, so that one isn't in play for when Ashling triggers, and the trigger is what makes the other one, so I can never get a second Roaming Throne that way. And so sacrificing it doesn't mean much most of the time, but with a doubling season effect, it actually would, because multiple Roaming Thrones would cause Ashling to trigger again multiple times. So if I sacrifice a token or a non-token elemental while I have 2 Roaming Thrones in play, I would make 3 copies of that elemental just from the Roaming Thrones. Like, each one of them would make an additional one, and the doubling season effect that made the 2 Roaming Thrones would also see them coming into play. So I would wind up with, let's see, if I had 2 of them, I would make 3 copies, and the doubling, yeah, so we would have 6 copies of whatever elemental it was. I didn't want to do quick math and be wrong again, so I actually took a moment. So that's why Roaming Throne is good. But we also have Norn, we also have Panharmonicon, we also have Twin Flame Travelers, which is already an elemental that can copy my elemental triggers. So I think I'm going to lose the Roaming Throne. Like I said, I'm not going to lose Norn because Norn does too much to hate on other players' decks while helping us. So the fact that she's not an elemental is not as important because Roaming Throne also isn't an elemental until it's in play. It does help that Roaming Throne is an elemental while it's in play for the exact reason I outlined, because if we have to get rid of it, if it's going to die, and we sacrifice it and get another copy of it, that still functions, but also if we get to sacrifice it while we can make multiple tokens per trigger, that will dramatically increase the number of things I can do. So yeah, I think it's lose Roaming Throne. Caretaker's Talent stays. Maha. Rotten Mouth definitely stays. Rotten Mouth is so absurd in this deck. Yeah, it was Twin Flame Travelers that made me think I can probably just go back and cut Roaming Throne at this point. Valkyrie's Call, not Valkyrie's Ascension. All of these. Yeah, 4 out of the 5 elemental incarnations are good for Commander to begin with. Or actually, technically, all 5 of them are good for Commander to begin with. Subtlety doesn't get anything for being in this deck. Like, it's very hard for there to be a second target for Subtlety's ability since it removes the card from the stack. The only upside would be that there'd be 2 copies of the trigger from 2 different sources trying to shut down the same thing. So, which, depending on what the opponent is using to stop you, like a Whirlwind Denial or um, Summary Dismissal or Glen Elendra's Decision, I think. The mythic counterspell from ECL. Yeah, all of them would still be able to stop it because they would be able to either stop the tokens from being made at all, and get the original trigger off of the stack, or just counter all of the triggers. Yeah, I don't think I can cut any of them. Enter Discovery draws 1,000,000 cards, and the only thing I do not like about it is that it does force you to draw that 1,000,000 cards. And while 1,000,000 is an exaggeration, it draws a ton of cards in this deck. Like an absolute pile of cards. Okay, it's 3 mana for the white enchantment, so that's right, the second time. Oh my god, I don't want to cut any of these. Like, at all. I keep thinking about cutting Living Lightning, and I'm at the point where, like, I have a bunch of really cool, powerful instants and sorceries, especially removal spells, primarily removal spells that I can pull back that will let me keep killing all of the opponent's stuff forever and ever. So that's pretty cool, but I don't think we need it. Yeah, we're at the part where I'm cutting things I really wanted to have in the deck, so we cut these three. That brings me down to 75. 15 more cards need to come out of this deck, and there's not a single card I want to cut. Is it Vampiric Tutor? We have Demonic at that point. The rest of our things are card draw and card selection. Like, there are times where we could really use one of a handful of specific artifacts or enchantments that this thing can go get. It can also go get us a creature, even though we have survival to go get creatures. Survival is a teeny tiny bit worse now that I've removed the animate dead, but we can still get back the creatures that we're discarding with Graveshifter and Green Warden. Sorry, I covered my face there. Green Warden. So I think we're good in that regard. Like, I don't have to worry about discarding things to the graveyard and then not being able to get them back. It might be Vampiric. Greater Good, Worn Power Stone, Attrition, Incubator, Food Chain. Food Chain is so potentially good in this deck. It literally allows you to keep chaining elementals together as long as you have them in your hand. Like, any elemental that costs 4 or more mana allows you to evoke the next elemental, and any overflow means that you can evoke a smaller elemental underneath it and still be able to potentially keep the chain going without needing any additional mana sources. Food Chain is so potentially strong. That's not even taking into account our various cost reduction effects. I can see Urza's Incubator directly above it. Like, at that point, I don't think I have an elemental left that costs 1 mana, so Food Chain is just actually making us enough mana to evoke the next elemental, regardless of what its actual cost is. Got a wire stuck to my foot. 1 second. There we go. Before I, like, yank something and pull down my monitor into my lap or something. Because it's attached to... It's, like, either coming out of the computer or... Yeah. You know how it gets. Look, I got rats all over the place for my various images, including my emotes. It should not surprise anybody if I have a rat's nest of cables somewhere in this whole setup. Alright, let me go check the removal section, because I already cut Chomping Changeling. And I cut the, well, I cut Martyr's Bond, but it would be hard for this deck to make Martyr's Bond kill, artifacts and enchantments consistently anyway. So, real quick. Aura Shards. If I need a full-on reset, there's O-Stone. Casualties of War. Farewell. Titan. Cavalier. I'm thinking I can cut Foundation Breaker. I think it is a 4-drop, which I did want more 4-drops if I could, but I'm definitely not cutting, I was about to say Foundation Breaker, Titan of Industry, or Cavalier of Dawn, which can both kill the things. I'm making, Birthing Pod and Pyre of Heroes worse. by cutting another 4-drop, because I already cut the Nevermaker, and so that brings me down to... What are my 4-drop elementals again? 5... Green Warden Marasa is green, green, and 4, right? It's definitely double green. I'm almost positive. Not Grief Warden. Green Warden. Not Greed Warden. Green Warden. Yeah, it's green, green, and 4. Oops. Warden. Let's fix that real quick. Then back down here. Let's see. Yeah, I knew it wasn't a 5-drop. I was 99.9% sure it was double green. 6, 5, 2, 6, 4. But I don't want to sacrifice Twin Flame Travelers ever if I can help it. Graveshifter is the other one. So it's like Graveshifter, Grief. Got rid of Living Lightning, so that was one of the 4s. I think I just have to do it, though. I think I need to lose Foundation Breaker. I think I have enough other ways to kill an artifact or enchantment if I need to that I don't need Foundation Breaker specifically. It sucks a tiny bit that my main way to kill an artifact or enchantment are Cavalier, which gives a replacement 3/3, and Titan of Industry, which has 4 useful modes. Now, granted, the Titan of Industry is almost definitely killing an artifact or enchantment in Commander anyway. There are so many absolutely powerful artifacts and enchantments that just kind of need to go if you can afford to kill them. Like, there's combo pieces, there's endless value engines. Just look at the things that we're running. And it should become pretty obvious why a card like Foundation Breaker is worth considering. There are just so many powerful artifacts and enchantments that need to go. And so getting rid of one of my ways to kill potentially multiples, like if I'm copying triggers from my elementals, like if I copy this thing's trigger to kill an artifact or enchantment, and then copy Ashling's trigger to make an extra copy of the Foundation Breaker, then we're killing like 6 artifacts and enchantments for a 2-mana investment. So, I really don't want to get rid of Foundation Breaker, but on its own it is the weakest. And we do have other ways to do the thing that it is doing. So... Sacred Foundry. Yeah, we need Foundations. Foundation Breaker. And there should be one more instance of the Breaker. Yeah. Did not cross off the list. Alright, so we lose Foundation Breaker. Because I realized I could afford to do that. Alright, start near the bottom and work up again. That's all of our ramp. Maelstrom Wanderer amuses me to no end. Evoking it for 4 mana is just so dumb. Like, yes, we can hit some bad cards, relatively speaking, things that aren't as good early, or things that are situationally better, and this is not the situation for them. But we also don't have to evoke Maelstrom Wanderer if too many of our potential hits off of his Cascades are going to be bad. So, yeah, I want to keep the Wanderer. The Wanderer is one of the cooler things we have access to in this deck. Lamentation. Lamentation is spelled wrong, because lamentation is a real word. Unless it's not accepting lamentation as a real word. Alright, is it 2 M's? Homicide, so lamentation. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now that I noticed it was spelled wrong, that was bothering me because it's a real word. So it should actually be fine. I have to fix the thing so my brain can stop focusing on the and that one's still green bit of distraction. Don't get that one, it is a Team 4-star reference. That's what I'll give you if you want to look it up yourself. But it always amuses me. Going through the card, like I'm going past the cards too fast. I need to focus more on each individual card. Like Lamentation needs to stay because it straight up murders a creature and gains us life, and we don't have a ton of straight up murder a creature. Like we have a few, but some of them have more restrictions on them. The attrition and Shriekmaw, for example, like repeatable creature kill as opposed to target creature kill, because we definitely have target creature kill that's not going to be shy about it or have any actual restrictions on it, like Path, Exile, Casualties of War, Grace's Judgment, Unexplained Absence. Like all of our targeted one-shot removal pretty much can kill a creature. So it's just a question of do we have like an elemental so that way, and this is the only elemental that we have that doesn't give them anything and doesn't have any targeting restrictions on it for killing creatures. So I'm not getting rid of Clever Concealment. I don't want to get rid of Deflecting Swat in this deck. I know there are people that swear by Deflecting Swat. I am not one of them, but Ashling is very much a lightning rod for removal to begin with, but she's cheap enough that having a way to deflect a removal spell away from her to something like a Deathrite Shaman or something that's been sitting in play for a turn or two is probably something that I'm interested in. Like, just being able to turn a removal spell away from Ashling in the early game is worth considering. Not cutting Fierce Guardianship for anything. Windgrace's Judgment is one of my preferred green-black Magic cards to begin with, and one of the reasons why I felt like I could cut other stuff. So cutting it is going to throw off a lot of that math. So Herald's Horn is the 4th mana discount on our elementals. It also potentially draws me extra cards when elementals or changelings are on top of my deck. Obviously, it's a lot worse than the Gathering Stone, but I don't think I can afford to cut it also. It's a lot worse, but it's also a mana cheaper, and we have Sensei's Top also to manipulate the top card of our deck. Like, it's infinitely better than Descendant's Path was, so, and that's the one we already got rid of. Kindred Discovery, it just... The only thing I hate about this card is it's not optional. If it were optional for the card draw, I wouldn't ever consider cutting it from this deck. The fact that it's not optional and we could have, like 4 or 5 creatures entering the battlefield in a single turn from casting one creature sometimes. And then if I need to attack, like, if I get into a position where I can make nearly infinite bodies, or actually infinite bodies, I might need a way to get rid of this thing. Because I might need to make enough bodies to make sure I actually win the game on the spot. And doing that could deck me out since it's an attack trigger also. Yeah, I can't cut Kindred Discovery. Solitude, Grief, Fury, and Endurance. Now it's just 4 elemental incarnations in this section. And I've said a few times I'm not thrilled about Endurance being my graveyard hate card, but I also always want to have graveyard hate in a commander deck, so I'm not going to cut Fury, or not Fury, Endurance here, rather. I'm not going to cut Endurance. I don't think I can not have. I feel very exposed when I don't have some kind of graveyard hate. You have to be able to deal with all of the main permanent types. Battle is like the only one that I don't feel like you absolutely have to be able to deal with, but you do need to be able to deal with like problematic creatures, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, and it usually helps to be able to deal with land also, and not just to take your opponent off of mana, but also to shut down certain um, either repeatable activated abilities or some type of static that the land is granting you just by being on the battlefield. Yeah, I can't get rid of any of them. But yeah, you gotta have your graveyard hate, and you gotta have your main, like, in play removal spells. You have to have some way to get certain things off of the table, and some way to stop them from ever coming back again. Or to stop them from coming back when they technically never left properly the first time. Actual reanimator decks and stuff. And endurance is much better than nothing. But certainly far from perfect. Yeah, I might replace Terror of the Peak still with Warstorm Surge. I'm still debating that one internally, but that's a lateral move, and Terror's going to stay on the list in the meantime as I lean forward past my microphone and make it do its best to keep up with me. Not losing the 2 Cavaliers, and I don't think I can lose Risen Reef. Revisits, Twin Flame, Shine Striker, Gathering Stone, Flame Braider, Airdew, Rotten Mouth. It's gonna be Maha, isn't it? I keep thinking about cutting Maha, despite the fact that I really like its interaction with Goblin Bombardment and Magma. But I am just completely out of things to cut at this point. It's a cool combo with those, but past that, it's not needed. Alright, let's cut Maha. It's a cool combo with some of the other cards in my deck, but on its own, it's not as impressive. It's only really good when it's allowing you to kill things with incredibly high toughness for very little effort. And let's be honest, how often is that actually a thing? Like, if I if you're in black, like, you have access to too much other removal that could kill anything anyway, so making something's toughness 1 usually doesn't matter. I think the main reason it would matter is something that is indestructible and has a negative X effect on itself, or something else is giving it negative X toughness, including a counter. Yeah, Maha has to go. just because I don't have anything else I can cut, and for no other reason. Do I lose the Pyre of Heroes and just keep Birthing Pod? Like, Pyre of Heroes... it tutors it into play, and... Well, I can't grab any 5s, I can turn a 5 into a 6 or a 6 into a 7. I'm already at 45 minutes into this thing. Alright, I think I can get by with just, Birthing Pod. I think I can get rid of the slightly worse Birthing Pod in this deck. It's only slightly worse, too. The only things it can't tutor for are, like, Norn and Micaeus at this point, I think. I think those are the only two that are still making it all the way through without being changelings. Alright, so if I get rid of these two, I'm down to 72. Okay, so clear those out. I might be able to get rid of Magma, but I feel like I want a different sacrifice outlet at that point. Would I rather have Pyre of Heroes then over the Magma? Done. So it's at 72. So if I put the Pyre back in and go get Magma instead... Because without Maha, the Magma is less impressive. So that puts me down to 72, but lets me keep a better way to sacrifice my things. It is at sorcery speed, so I have to lose the token, not the original one. But then I'm getting a new body anyway, and that body sticks around, and I got all the value out of the token. I think that's better than Magma dealing 1 point of damage. And it's only costing me 1 more mana. So yeah, if I'm worried about not having enough good ways to sacrifice my things, I think... Like, I lose out on the value of Magma sacrificing the original, and then possibly the token afterwards for extra damage, but the extra damage feels negligible compared to getting another elemental out of my deck if I have one at a higher... like a 1 point higher mana cost. Because I still have a lot of 5s and 6s and 7s in the deck. So, those 3 together should be enough. Alright, so... go back down to Pyre and start working up again, see if we can find more stuff. Going to Procession, Panharmonicon, Omnath Green Warden, Dictate of Erebos, Aeus the Unhallowed, Parallel Lives, Keeping the Birthing Pod. I really love Cauldron, but I don't think this is happening. I don't think I can make it down to 60 cards and keep the Cauldron. I'm gonna have to cut some other stuff and then probably still cut the Cauldron if I don't do it here. Alright, let's try and force 1 more cut for the day and then call it there. Definitely not Doubling Season, it's not Top, not Crucible. I don't think it's O-Stone, it's definitely not Mana Echoes. My brain finally clicked with why, like, I kept realizing, you know, while trying to discuss cutting Mana Echoes, that Ashling and 1 other elemental, the thing that I evoked itself, is paying for the next elemental to evoke So, Mana Echoes is definitely supposed to be in here. Like, that's way too strong. Is it possible it's the other two cost reducers and I just run Incubator? That would give me the internet's favorite number. Like, I really do like Herald's Horn and um, Gathering Stone in this deck. The cost reduction is a very real thing when I'm only paying colorless mana to begin with. Obviously, Urza's Incubator is way stronger at 2 colorless mana reduced. As far as the cost reduction goes, it's way stronger. But even making it cost 3 mana and potentially drawing extra cards each turn makes both of the other ones seem very, very good in the deck. Alright, what else do I have to choose from? Is there anything else? Is it Veil? Veil is one of those cards that I absolutely love to put in decks because most people will have no idea what it does, and it works perfectly in the deck with what the deck is doing. But so does the Renewed Solidarity. It's actually stronger because it triggers comes into play abilities again, whereas phasing them out and back in doesn't. Don't want to cut it. I don't want to cut Vampiric Tutor either. And the more redundancy I cut, the more insane it seems to cut one of my few tutors that's left. Alright, I think I call it there. I think I hold on 70. Let me turn over in my brain the idea of cutting the Gathering Stone and Herald's Horn. Because I think they might have to go for room, but I definitely don't want them to go because they're very powerful in the deck. So let me mull that over. We'll call it there for right now. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.